Welcome to the Limitless Ladies Network, a women's holistic wellness podcast where our mission is to help women build holistic self-care. The following disclaimer applies to all episodes and content shared on this show. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Limitless Ladies Network or its affiliates. The information and advice provided on this podcast are for general educational purposes only and should not be considered as professional medical, nutritional, or therapeutic advice. The content shared on this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or health condition. Listeners are advised to consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to their diet, lifestyle, or health routine. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you are aware of the limitations and potential risks associated with the information and advice shared on this show. You release and hold harmless Limitless Ladies Network, its hosts, guests, and affiliates from any liability for any damages, losses, or injuries that may result from the use of the information and advice provided on this podcast. Hello, welcome to Limitless Ladies Network. Today we are talking with Cheryl Benanti, Reiki Master Teacher, Life Coach, and Intuitive Tarot Reader. She's graduated from the University of Hartford with a master's degree in organizational psychology, which I definitely want to ask you about organizational psychology, and a bachelor's degree in business administration management. She's a certified master Reiki teacher with Holy Fire and UC Reiki. Did I say that right?
Uzui Reiki.
Thank you for that correction. And she's a founding member, vice president, and board member of Holistic Community Professionals. So welcome, Cheryl.
Thank you so much. It's nice to see you.
So glad to have you here. Excited to be talking about Reiki and the power of energy and the healing that it can do. So can you share with us your own personal journey and what brought you to wanting to actually discover a little bit more about Reiki and how it transformed your life?
Yeah, so funny enough, I was exposed to Reiki in my early 20s, probably mid 20s. A friend of mine, spiritual mentor friend, was practicing. And at this time, she was like traveling to New York to get lessons and certifications, and she obviously had to practice. So she called me one day, and she lived probably about 20 minutes away from me, and she called me one day and she's like, "Can you come over? I have to do something." I'm like, "I need your help." I'm like, "Sure," so I head over there and no questions asked, here I am. Like, what are we doing? So she's like, "Okay, sit in the chair, sit right there, and I want to try something. So my hands are going to be around you. You may feel these certain things. And afterwards, I'm going to ask you how you feel." I said, "Okay, all right. I can sit in a chair, no problem."
Easy enough, right? Easy peasy.
Easy enough, yeah. So she started kind of having her hands over me, and I could feel energy and all this type of thing. And then after a few minutes, she says, "Okay, how do you feel?" I said, "You gave me a headache." I kid you not. And she's like, "Oh crap," I said, "Well, if you can give it to me, you could take it away. So please do your thing again and fix it." So actually she did. So from there, I knew it was really special, knew it was something. I just didn't know a lot of it. I just knew she was practicing. It was going to be something else she was going to add to her kind of array of services and all that. But lo and behold, kind of fast forward to about 10 years ago, it was reintroduced. A friend of mine had a friend, so kind of an acquaintance, and she and her mom were going through breast cancer, and they both were practicing Reiki and actually practicing Reiki on each other. And then the teacher was coming and doing Reiki on them. So I got a little more exposed to it at that time, just hearing about it. And it really piqued my interest. And I talked to the acquaintance about it. And she says, "Oh, yeah, I'll give you the name of the teacher." And lo and behold, I had a session with her. And that weekend, she happened to be offering Reiki 1 classes. And I signed right up and took it. I just loved it. It felt like it was just almost meant to be. It was like, everything is kind of aligning where, these offerings are here. The conversation just happened. It was just really divine timing, I think. So, and since then, haven't looked back, just kept going, kept learning, kept growing, kept, kind of getting to the next level and practicing and having more experiences with it. And I just love it. It's a real passion of mine. So.
That is awesome. So you are a Reiki master and you started out at Reiki level 1. How long
Reiki
did
level
it
1.
take you?
Yeah. So I can't recall each certificate, but really, I just got the teacher certificate. It'll be 2 years in February.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So between that, I would say it's probably a good maybe 3 years in between the different levels, or kind of getting to the master level or thereabouts. But yeah, just recently, like I said, about 2 years ago, I started the actual teaching. Simply because I was getting asked, do you teach? I'm like, no, 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 no. So collectively, I would say probably 3 years to get the first three certificates, and then about 2 years ago for the teacher certificate. So yeah,
Wow, that's pretty
yeah,
intensive.
yeah. I again, for me, it's just every experience is different, and I just love it. And what I really come to find is the teaching aspect I love. I love it more than I thought I was going to love it. So it's that connection. It's the, kind of seeing people transform from what they think it is and what they came in thinking they might do or might not do, and to see them leaving with so much more knowledge and education, and a little more confidence, to be honest. So I love that aspect of it. So yeah.
That is great. Teaching for me is one of the most exciting things when you get to see students that are get that aha moment that they realize that they have this energy or they get this concept, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Total.
great.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So can you explain to us a little bit more about Reiki and how that actually can promote healing and balancing in the body?
Yeah, so Reiki itself, it's like air, right? It's energy. Energy is all around us, and we, as Reiki practitioners, whether it's whatever level it is, we're channeling that energy to kind of promote people being able to receive that energy. So, in other words, we're the conduit. And people have asked in the past, oh, your energy, does your energy get drained, or um, your energy is so this or so that. I said, I'm the conduit. I always clarify that. I said, it's not me. It's the energy, and I'm just the vessel. So, but I think it's really helping people be, have their nervous system be calmer. And as we know, when nervous systems are calmer, people are more apt to kind of be, you know, at the, I guess I guess I would say, because of the calm state that they're in, their body's more able to help promote their healing, whether it's
Right.
physical, emotional, spiritual. So I think it's more about them kind of being at that calmer state and calmer level, to promote the healing. Am I doing it? No. Are they doing it? Yes. I'm, again, being the conduit to help them heal themselves. So I really feel like that's a clear distinction, and I always kind of make that clear to the person. But yeah, so it's working with the energy, helping them kind of be in a relaxed, calmer state to really help and promote any type of healing that they're looking for. Like I said, spiritual, emotional, physical, it can serve all of those purposes. So,
That's great.
mhm,
It's fascinating that you are just the conduit, and I
mhm,
believe that everyone has to do their own healing. And I
correct.
know a lot of people will look outside for a quick fix, whether that be some type of a prescription or even if you go to somebody else in order to get some type of feedback, right?
Right,
But
right.
the biggest thing is I think teaching people how to heal themselves, giving them
Hmm.
those powers that they need in order to facilitate those whenever they need in the moments of stress and anxiety that arise, right? We have to be able to control those energies ourselves.
Exactly. Yep. I
Yeah.
agree. I agree. Yep.
So that's fantastic. So how can someone tell if Reiki is actually working for them? So you said at first like you had a headache,
Hmm.
which is fascinating to me. You got a headache from the whole experience, but then she was able to clear it, which is great. So, and
Yeah.
I've had Reiki done too, and I don't know that I really feel a lot. Sometimes I feel almost that there is like bubbles sort of moving through me in different ways.
Hmm.
I guess everyone's experience is going to be different.
Yeah, I always ask for feedback at the end of the session. During the session, it's typically quiet. Like I'm quiet so they can get what they need. They're quiet so they can take in what they need. And But yeah, so people, a lot of times I've worked with people with high stress or high anxiety, and the fact that, they can calm their mind or they're not overthinking, which typically a lot of people that see me are overthinkers, or they're just so out of sorts or out of balance. When they feel the shift within themselves, whether it's not thinking about, 10 million things, or, being able to kind of just have some inner peace, whatever it is. I always say, even if you're at like 150 and you get to 100, that's a shift enough where you'll notice that. So everybody's experience is different, but I think whatever their issue is, how they're coming in, when they feel a slight difference or variation of that, whether it's calmer or just having some more inner peace, or just not thinking about anything at all, I think they really find that for themselves and are amazed actually that they're like, oh, well, I know it was working because I wasn't thinking of anything. I'm like, great. So everybody's different. Some people feel tingling, or some people have like different body sensations or what have you, or not, because for example, I had a person the other day come to me with neuropathy, and I knew, I've had that experience with someone before, and I said, you may feel absolutely nothing, but for him, it was all about that because of the tingling and pain that he was having from the nerve damage. He wasn't feeling anything, and then he was able to calm his whole body. He was very shaky,
Mhm.
very kind of um, a little just nervous and just uncomfortable. But literally, like halfway through our session, his whole body went still, and he was floored by it. He's like, "I've searched everything, I've done everything, I've looked at everything, and nothing has worked." And he says, "This was my last kind of." Resort, so to speak. And I said, well, I'm happy to be the last resort, and I'm hoping it helps. And sure enough, he did get that kind of calmness again, his whole body kind of being still when he was very fidgety on the table, and just fidgety overall. So everybody experiences it different, but they find their own shift within themselves. And, again, I always ask for that feedback afterwards, because sometimes it's not, obvious to me, but to them, they know. And hearing that feedback really, makes me feel good, makes it, validated, and makes them kind of have a positive experience with it. So I love Reiki.
Yeah, it sounds
I love the
fascinating.
results. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Do they typically have to go back for more than one session with you to really kind of
Uh,
feel or get the healing that they're looking for? Or is it
hmm.
mostly that they can be done almost in one session and just feel so much more lighter and freer?
One session most times will do it for someone, depending on what they're going through, depending on how also they were referred to me. Sometimes therapists will refer people for certain reasons, anxiety or depression or what have you. Sometimes those are a little bit longer, and we come up with a plan, like what's going to work or be most effective for them. Again, depending on how the first session goes. But some people are one and done. It's like that, no, this works for me. I feel good. If I need you, I'll call you. I'm like, fantastic. Other people, I'm like, I'll see you next week. Okay.
Yeah,
So, so it varies again on the individual based on what they're going through or what they're needing it for. And also, the severity or how long they've been kind of dealing with an issue. I always kind of compare it to massage, although we do get confused with that, right?
yeah.
I always say, you wouldn't go to a massage therapist after never being to one and having a very high level of stress and having knots all over. You can't expect it to be, fixed in 1 hour session, so it's like similar to that in that respect, where, it just depends on the situation. So,
That makes sense because you have to meet them where they are, and
yeah.
everyone's going to be on different spectrums and have different issues internally, externally that they're dealing with. So that makes total sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, can't agree with you more. Yeah.
What have you found to be some misconceptions that people might have about Reiki?
Mm. Yeah, so kind of going back to my massage example, they do think sometimes it is a massage. Sometimes other people, sign them up for things they have no idea what they're getting. So they're like, I have no idea about this. I didn't do any research. Is it like a massage? I'm like, no. They're like, wait, I think I've had acupuncture. That must be it, right? I'm like, nope. So they kind of get it confused with different modalities, which I always find really entertaining. I'm like, do you even know what you're getting? And they're like, no, not really. I said, oh, I'll explain everything to you, no problem. So we kind of go into it a little bit more before the session gets started. But a lot of times it's confusion of what it is. Also, sometimes people think it's religious. They're like, oh, I won't do anything. I'm this religion or that religion. I said, well, it's not a religion. It's really energy, and energy is everywhere. You breathe it every day, and just like the air. And so people sometimes will get those factors confused about it. But I try to, educate as simply and as quickly as possible. Usually we're on a time limit. So, I try to kind of make sure they have an understanding of what they're getting and even, before getting on the table. So yeah, it's interesting in people's perspective or what they think it is and what they think they're going to feel or not. And then again, the results after. It's something I always look forward to hearing at the end is kind of like I call it the debrief, see how people are
Right.
feeling and getting that feedback and it's amazing some of the people's experiences. But yeah, some of the confusion is first and foremost, they think it's a massage, and I'm like, nope, nope, no, stay dressed. You keep everything on, and you just get on the table, and we're good.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah.
And do you have to, so I know that they're fully clothed, but in
Mhm.
most cases, do you touch them? So I've had experience where people have touched me, and then
Mhm.
others, I think, where they just kind of put their hands over. So there's no touching involved.
Yeah, I do a
Does it
combination.
matter on what level of issue that you have, whether you need to be touched or not touched?
I mean, well, for me personally, and this is also when I'm teaching, this is what I always kind of stress and kind of use as an example, during our practice. But for me, I always, I say, this is how I do things. Are you comfortable with this? Like, here's where my hand placements will be. So there's no confusion as far or anticipation. Like, wait, where is she going to be? Is her hands there? Where is it? Because what I find, Tammy, is that when I first started, I would do more kind of like hands around and it caused more anxiety or confusion about where I was versus where I wasn't.
Mm,
So people need that tactile in my experience. They need that touch. They need to know where I am. And even with that, sometimes they'll feel my energy or feel the energy in one area and I'm in a different area. So it's kind of good that we've gone over those things. But when I start the session initially, it's always kind of like hovering over the face. And again, these are things I explain to people and, of course, get their, permission to have hand placements. Some people don't like to be touching it in like, for instance, in the shoulder area, like when I'm ready to finish the session, just to kind of realign that heart chakra area. They don't like the shoulders. And I'm like, and one woman told me it was because she was in an abusive situation and that just kind of made her uncomfortable. No problem. We can skip that. Okay. Or we can just hover over it. But I always kind of want to make sure everybody's comfortable with that. And going back to the feet, some people don't like their feet being touched, so in that area, I'll just kind of hover over. So again, going back to individuality and what works for some people, but mainly I do hands-on, except at the start of the session where I just kind of hover over, but always making sure people are comfortable with what to expect or, hand placements and where they'll be.
yeah,
So,
that's
so
critical.
it's a combination. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense because there are a lot of women, particularly, I'm sure, that have had traumatic experiences in some way that in some touch, especially if their eyes are closed and they're laying down and they don't know where you are, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if they're in a relaxed state, I don't know if Reiki does it bring up because it's energies. Is
Mm-hmm.
it something that like a sound healing where it would kind of bring up something from past traumas to them?
Yeah, sometimes it has actually, or sometimes they've seen it differently, or it varies. But a lot of times, if there's any emotional release to be had, that's where it is on the table. So, a lot of times you get tears, or they thought of something they haven't thought of in a while, or what have you. And I always, kind of stress that at the beginning. if you feel emotional, just let it out. There's no judgment, I mean, that's essentially what the work is and what it's for is to help with that. So yeah, it runs the gamut with people's emotions. Sometimes people are very emotional on the table, and it's to me, it's it's telling that they're ready to release that, and also that they were comfortable enough to release that. So I find those two things always very impressive with energy work. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Is there anything that you wish that people understood more about Reiki energy healing?
Yeah, I wish they understood that it's more of a preventative, we can use it as a preventative to work with stress and anxiety, and kind of just calming our nervous system altogether, so we're not um, just going every day until something happens where you get referred to someone to see to have Reiki done. So I wish it was more looked at as the preventative and a first step versus a last step.
Mhm.
And also, another misconception is people are like, "Oh, wait, I'm gonna lay down. I'm gonna be relaxed. I can't relax. Oh, I don't know how to meditate." I'm like, "Well, it's not that, but maybe you'll get to that point where you'll feel that way." But so I think those are a little areas of misconception. I wish was educated enough about to really be the first steps versus the last, at least in my experience. Yeah.
Preventative is always nice
Hmm.
versus trying to catch up or figure out what the issues are, right? So if you're
Yeah.
in balance with your chakras on a regular basis, then there's less traumas, less issues that are going to arise, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's people are like, "Oh," and funny, what I've been hearing more recently is I said, "Oh, have you had Reiki before?" And people say, "Yes, I had a surgery and they offered it." I'm like, "Oh,
Really?
it just makes my heart so happy." Yeah. Yeah, they're
Wow.
like, "That was my first experience with it, and before my surgery or after my surgery or when I was in, they offered it." And I'm like, "Oh my God, that's music to my ears,
That
honestly." So,
is
yeah.
fantastic. I have not
Mhm.
heard that before. I'm impressed.
Yeah, I'm every time I hear it, I'm like, "Ooh, where were you?" And
I
I just
know.
my ears just perk up, and it just makes me so happy to hear that that's something that people are getting experience with, especially in a stressful situation like that. So it really was. That's kind of been. I've heard that from a couple people more recently, which has been really nice. Really,
That
really
is
nice to hear.
so refreshing to hear that
Yeah.
Western medicine is kind of coming around to the seriousness and the, I don't want to say accountability, but the accuracy, I guess, of being able to really help people to heal through their surgeries and
Mm,
just feel better faster, right?
mm.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. It's every time I hear it, I'm surprised, but it's also very comforting. And I'm like, oh, yay! At least you've had an experience in a probably very stressful time in this person's life. So it really, yeah. So it makes me happy to hear that.
It is, and I want to know like where those surgeons are that actually
Right?
offer that after because
Yeah.
that's not very common.
Right. Right. Very true. Yeah.
All right. Are there any other insights that you'd like to share with us regarding Reiki?
I think if you're interested in it, and you just want to check it out, go for it. I think it's, if anything, you'll feel a little bit calmer and a little bit lighter when you leave, and hopefully a little better when you leave altogether. Just give it a shot, try it out, talk to the person, even if it's not me, talk to whoever, ask some questions, and see if there's a connection there, and give it a try. I think, the more people that have the experience, the happier people are, the calmer they are. I think it's good for all of us. So, give it a shot, give it a try. Yeah.
I agree. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not invasive, so it doesn't really
Right.
do you
Hmm.
any harm necessarily. I mean, it might
Right.
give you a headache at first, but
It
hopefully
was
that's
so
not
funny.
the worst.
I will never forget that experience. It was just, because she was practicing and because she was just learning, and hey, this is part of the learning, right? So
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
very impactful and very I was very honored to kind of be her guinea pig at that time. It was, so long ago. Like not a lot of people were practicing at all. You really had to seek it out. So
Yeah.
yeah. So now, yeah, the more people that know it, the more people that teach it, the more people that experience it. I think, like I said, I think it's better for all of us, to be honest. So
I
yeah.
absolutely agree.
Mhm, mhm,
100%.
mhm.
That's fantastic. So, with that, I will conclude our episode, but I
Okay.
just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. And Cheryl, where can people find you?
Yep. So my website is reikiwilltravel.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Threads, you name it. I think TikTok even. I'm
Good
not
for you.
sure, but I don't do much on that, but I'm still investigating. But mainly Reiki will travel in any capacity. If you search it, I'll come up. You can text me, call me. My phone number is, I believe, in the information that you have. So
Yep, and I will be posting that in the show
post.
notes for everybody, so that'll be great,
Yeah,
along with your website that everyone can click
exactly.
on.
Yeah.
But this has been fantastic, and I appreciate all of our listeners listening to this episode and learning more about Reiki, and Cheryl, you sharing with us. And for those ladies that would like to meet and learn more about holistic practices, there are many different practitioners that are joining us for a ladies' night out in Coventry on January 21st at the Lakeview Restaurant in Coventry, as I mentioned. It's kind of a pay your own way, but anyone can show up and have a really nice dinner and just kind of network, intermingle, connect with some people, some ladies really, and have a really fun night. So you can register while spots are open still, because I'm doing that every quarter. We try to keep it somewhat intimate, but being able to really connect with some different practitioners to learn about what's out there, and also just for ladies to come out and have some fun. So be
Mhm.
sure to follow us on social media on Facebook. It's limitlessladiesnetwork.com, where you can register for our session, and you can also follow us on YouTube and get the latest episodes there whenever they drop. And I'm also on LinkedIn, so you can check us out there as well. Thanks again, Cheryl. This was great.
Thank you so much for having me, Tammy. It was a pleasure.
Welcome to the Limitless Ladies Network, a women's holistic wellness podcast where our mission is to help women build holistic self-care. The following disclaimer applies to all episodes and content shared on this show. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views of Limitless Ladies Network or its affiliates. The information and advice provided on this podcast are for general educational purposes only and should not be considered as professional medical, nutritional, or therapeutic advice. The content shared on this podcast is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or health condition. Listeners are advised to consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to their diet, lifestyle, or health routine. By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge that you are aware of the limitations and potential risks associated with the information and advice shared on this show. You release and hold harmless Limitless Ladies Network, its hosts, guests, and affiliates from any liability for any damages, losses, or injuries that may result from the use of the information and advice provided on this podcast.